Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live broadcast network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. On my 3-hour wellness show broadcast here on LA Talk Live, I've had some influential thinkers and speakers and practitioners of the various modalities of wellness. People who work with food as a healing tool, people who work with exercise, people who are involved with the environment, people who are involved with manipulation of the spine, people who are healers. And today, it is my great pleasure to welcome to the LA studio Dr. Eric Pearl, who has achieved a remarkable presence as a healer here in the United States and worldwide, and appeared by invitation at the United Nations, has been on many television shows, and is endorsed by many important people in wellness who don't usually endorse anyone in wellness. And so it is a great pleasure to have Dr. Eric Pearl with us today. Dr. Pearl, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to have you here. And I've not had anyone quite like you on the show. And so therefore, I'm a little bit at a loss as to what intelligent questions to ask you, because the questions don't seem to be relevant. Because when I read your book and I watched some of your videos, your ability to heal is just kind of remarkable, and people recognize it as such. And you were trained as a chiropractor. Here you went to school in LA, and you used that, and then you developed these new ideas. So please tell the audience what you do.
Well, I guess the best way to begin is to start with the background of how it came about. I practiced chiropractic for about 12 years when one night a few strange things took place. I was awakened in the middle of the night by a very bright light. I opened my eyes to see what it was, and it wasn't anything seemingly woo-woo spiritual or metaphysical. It was just the lamp next to my bed had come on. Now, I had had that lamp for a good 10 years and hadn't selected any other propitious occasion to self-ignite, but there it was. And my initial thought was that I guess it was some kind of an electrical disturbance, something electrical like a short, except shorts usually turn things off, and I'd never heard of an electrical long, but there it was. Mm-hmm. Yet at the same time, I had a very uneasy, yet very real feeling or an awareness that I had been being watched. I don't know what it's like I don't know how to convey the feeling to wake up and feel as if while you were asleep someone was in your home and watching you. It's not comfortable. I got up cautiously with a knife and a can of pepper spray and my Doberman pinscher. I went searching through the house. After about 15 minutes of not finding anyone, I finally decided it had to be my imagination. I went back to sleep. Mm-hmm. But on that Monday, when I went into my office, some very unusual things started to occur with my patients. I would adjust my patients as I always had, starting with them face down, finishing with them lying on their back face up. I'd tell them to close their eyes and relax and allow the adjustment to settle into place as I always did. And when I removed my hands from them, I started feeling unusual sensations in my hands. I noticed that as I moved my hands around their bodies, that their bodies would go into involuntary movements. Their eyes would rapidly dart back and forth. Their muscles, tiny little involuntary muscles on their forehead or around their chin would ripple, appearing to ripple the way water would ripple if you dropped a pebble into it, pulling at their lips, pulling at their eyebrows. I noticed that as I played with these sensations, I could get their physical responses to increase, to vary, get their fingers to move, their arms or their legs to jerk. When they opened their eyes, they started reporting seeing colors they'd never seen before, smelling fragrances of flowers they'd never before smelled, and they started reporting and demonstrating healings, real healings. They were getting up out of wheelchairs, some of them, vision and hearing returning.
And this was occurring at your chiropractic practice in Los Angeles? Yes.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Sometimes days later, patients would come in, show me laboratory results where their cancer tumors had vanished. Parents of my younger patients, the children, would call me and they'd say that children with cerebral palsy or epilepsy were suddenly able to walk and run and play and speak normally, not have seizures, not need medications. Of course, look, just as with medicine, nothing is 100%. Not 100% of the people get 100% of the same response 100% of the time, but enough people. So we started to recognize that something significant, something substantial was occurring. My patients would call, they'd ask, what did I do? Their doctors would call, they'd ask, what did I do? I said, I didn't do anything and don't tell anyone, which went over about as big as the earlier policy of the U.S. trying to just say no to drugs. Soon everyone started coming in saying, I'll have what she had. They all wanted to experience the same things. And then people started asking if I would teach this. And I said, teach it. You've got to be insane. I'm standing there. I'm waving my hands in the air looking like an idiot. I said, you go outside, wave your hands in the air. Let me know what your neighbors have to say about you. But more and more, my patients would be calling me saying, I drove home from your office. I pulled up in front of my house. Before I could hit the button to open my automatic garage door, it opened by itself. Or I walked inside, the lamp of the TV started to turn off and on and off and on. I felt sensations in my hands. I would hold my hands near someone in my family. Suddenly my grandfather could walk after the stroke, or my uncle regained his hearing. And that's when we began to recognize, to discover that once we interact with this more comprehensive spectrum of healing, that today science refers to as the Reconnective Healing spectrum. Once we interact with it, it not only allows us to access our own healings, but it seems to allow us to facilitate, to bring about healings for other people as well.
Now, reading your book in preparation for this, you mentioned that one of your office managers literally took you to the beach where she insisted you get a $10, was it a tarot reading?
I don't remember whether it was real playing cards or tarot cards.
All right, and from that kind of seemingly kind of silly or random event, what was the name of the book that you decided to read?
She wanted to. This woman who gave me the reading told me she wanted to do some kind of an unusual work on me. I'm sorry,
It's cold.
No, it's not the cold. It's just going a certain way. Sometimes it's stopping me from breathing. I don't know why. Oh, good.
Team will take
Thank
care
you
of
for
that.
fixing that. Yeah. She told me that she did this kind of work that could tie us in more comprehensively to the universe. That supposedly, according to the theory she explained, that the meridian lines in our bodies used to be part of a far more comprehensive system than they are today. They used to extend off of our bodies, tie us into the grid lines, the ley lines that encircle the planet, the globe, and then continue out, connecting us to the other stars and planets and the dimensions in between.
Okay, excuse me. So, Dr. Pearl, what is a meridian line?
Meridian lines are what the acupuncturists use. There are certain line patterns on our bodies that they stick pins or needles in. So these are meridian lines on our bodies. And she explained that they used to extend off of our bodies to tie us into the planet and to the other stars and dimensions in the universe.
Right.
I listened. It was an interesting sounding story. I didn't know what kind of credence to give it or not. But then she started saying that she did a work that could reconnect us with this system. That when we were all tied into one system, we were all rapidly unfolding and evolving. But at a point in time when we separated, the universe continued to evolve and unfold at a wonderful rate. Our rate sort of slowed down a bit, but it still continued. And we were at a point where we could either gradually wait through generations and generations and slowly reconnect to this system, or she could tie us back in and hook us in very rapidly to it. And I asked her how much money she wanted for this, and she said $333. And I said, thank you very much, but no, because I could think of lots of things to do with $333 besides giving it to a card reader on the beach, with a folding chairs and a card table.
Right.
So I started to leave, I thanked her for the reading. I started to leave. There was nothing in the reading that made any particular sense to me or stood out in any way. It was a $10 reading, what can I tell you? But she scribbled down on a piece of paper, she said, here, you can read about this in a book called The Book of Knowledge, The Keys of Enoch by Dr. J.J. Hertog. I thanked her very much. I put the paper in my pocket with no intention of paying any attention to it again. But I found I kept thinking about it, thinking about it, and thinking about it. And one day at lunch, I decided to take an extra 10 minutes, run into a bookstore and find the book and quickly skim through it. She said, just read this one little chapter. It's only 8 pages. I figured I'd skim through those 8 pages in the book. Well, if you've ever seen this book, you'll understand that there are 3 things that you cannot do with it. You cannot quickly skim through it, you cannot read it, and you cannot understand it. Now, outside of that, it's a phenomenal book. Right. The more I read, the more confused I became. The more confused I became, the more intrigued I became. I understood parts. I didn't understand other parts. I was attracted to the concepts. I went back other times to try to read the parts I didn't understand. I found out I understood parts that I didn't understand the first time, and then I didn't understand the parts that I thought I did understand the first time. After going back and forth several times, I figured it would probably just be cheaper if I paid the woman her $333 and let her do the work. So I made an appointment, scheduled over 2 different days, on a Thursday, which was my day off, and on a Sunday. I went in on that Thursday, and she placed me on a massage table, dimmed the lights, put on the New Age tinkly music that everyone loves to play for some inexplicable reason, and took her fingertips and started tracing little line patterns physically on my body and my face. All the while I was lying there thinking, I cannot believe that I gave this woman $333 to do this, but I had done it, so I might as well let go and see whatever happens, let it happen. The end of the session, it felt as if I experienced nothing, absolutely nothing. I thanked her very much, drove home thinking there was nothing more ridiculous I could possibly have done except for agree to come back for part 2 on that Sunday. But that was the night, that Thursday night, that my lamp turned itself on and woke me up. That my bedroom door, which I had closed before I'd gone to sleep, was open when that light came on, which gave me all the more reason or feeling that I felt as if I'd been being watched. I went to work on that Friday. Nothing was different. Saturday was a normal day. Sunday I went back for part 2. She placed me on the table, did the same thing on my body again. But this time the experience was different. When she finished, and this was an oppressively hot August day in Southern California in a non-air-conditioned apartment. Yet when she finished, I was so chilled she had to wrap me in a blanket for a good 5 minutes. I remember getting into my car, starting the ignition. I don't remember anything else except for feeling a sense of peace, which on one hand I had never felt before, and on the other hand was more familiar than anything I'd ever experienced. I don't remember the drive home. I don't remember getting home that night. I don't remember going to sleep. I don't remember going into work in the morning. I just remember on that Monday morning, my patients having these responses I started telling you about, my employees saying to me, what happened to you over the weekend? You look different. You sound different. I didn't want to say, well, I paid some very charming Jewish gypsy who called me Bubala $333 to draw lines on my body with her fingertips. Why do you ask? So I sort of just went on with my day. And this evolved and evolved. And the next thing I know, word is getting out everywhere. Researchers, scientists are coming in to look at what's happening, because this wasn't just energy healing as we may know of it today, Reiki, Jurei, and Qigong. This wasn't the new energy healing techniques of today or the old ones. This seems to, according to the researchers, encompass all of the gifts of all of the energy healing techniques without needing to know any of the complicated steps of the techniques, without having to get involved in the fear-based rituals, without having to use the healing toys, the pyramid hats, the pendulums, without burning the incense, without having to om or meditate. And yet it brings us into something far more comprehensive, the healings of which seem to be unique in at least two different ways, extraordinarily. That A, they tend to be fairly instantaneous, and B, they tend to be life-lasting.
All right. Now, so this is very remarkable and out of my realm of expertise.
It was out of my realm of expertise. Thank
I
God I
have
didn't let
nothing
that stop me.
Right, right. And you actually, in a very nice way, comment on that. You know, it was how you kind of fell into this, really, or allowed yourself to be coaxed into it. Now, what about the whole idea of strands of DNA? Would you like to comment on that, as mentioned in your book, about what this practitioner said to you? If practitioner is the correct word for that person who trained you, or
no one trained me to doing this. It was as if, all right, the woman on the beach did some unusual work, and I started having these responses. Twice a week, I'd wake up, there'd be a lamp on that I know was off. There'd be a door open that I know was closed. It wasn't always the same lamp. It wasn't always the same door. It wasn't always at my home. I remember traveling to stay at my brother's house on the East Coast. It happened while I was there. Staying at a friend's house. It happened when I was there. It just seemed to happen around me. As I would work over people, although this doesn't happen any longer, what happened then multiple times is that my palms would blister, tiny, tiny, tiny little blisters, a millimeter in size. And they wouldn't last like blisters last, days or a week. It would only last for a few hours. My palm actually bled once, not like a stigmata, but the way it would bleed if you accidentally stuck it with a needle or a pin. Different things would occur, and I would speak to this woman who did the work to me, and she wouldn't have answers for it. She introduced me to the woman who taught her the work. She didn't have answers for it. Finally, through the discussion and the communication, the interaction, the understanding, it came to an understanding that it was if the woman who created this work had created a key. So visualize just a key, a regular a door key. Everyone she taught how to do this work, it was as if she'd given duplicates of the key to them and sent them out in the world, said, keep trying doors, keep trying locks. There's a door or a lock this is supposed to open somewhere. And I was that door. I'm not the gift, I'm the door. If Oprah Winfrey walks in through this door, none of us are going to run over and go, wow, what a killer door. Oprah came in. The door's just as good as any other door, right?
Right.
As a matter of fact, the woman who did this work to me came back to me to receive the gift of what walked through the door. So, now I forgot your original question.
That's okay. I've forgotten it too. Because I tell you, I hate to. Usually, when people hear we talk about food, we talk about herbs. I mean, I get all that, and I know it has merit. But what you have written about is just, I think it's real, or I wouldn't have you on the show. And a lot of people who have a lot of important clout in wellness think that what you do is real. And it's just very impressive that you can heal people with this very simple technique, which you carry on about in a very lighthearted fashion. But it's just remarkable. And a lot of people have been touched by it.
Well, it's really a non-technique. As a matter of fact, the gift of this is that it allows us to completely transcend all of our complex healing techniques that tell us to do step A and B and C and 1 and 2 and 3, worry about moving the hand clockwise or counterclockwise, bringing in energies north, south, east, west, bringing in this percentage from the earth, this percentage from the heavens, protecting ourselves in white and purple and green flames, breathing in bad energy to a count of 4, blowing it out to a count of 8, shaking it off, spraying ourselves off with alcohol, and soaking in vinegar baths. We don't have to do that any longer. Apparently, we're living in a time where we're here to recognize our own abundance of light, of spirituality in ourselves. Every choice that we make, every action that we take comes from one of two places. It either comes from a consciousness of fear, lack, limitation, the illusion of separation, the illusion of darkness, the need for control, or it comes from love, prosperity, abundance, light, oneness, unity, freedom. And we can't give a gift that we're unwilling to accept or receive ourselves. We can't stand in the energy healing world protecting ourselves with this, that, and the other in that state of fear and facilitate healings that reside in love. We can't stand in the healing world adding crystals and pendants and jewelry to ourselves to make ourselves more and facilitate healings that reside in us recognizing our own abundance, reclaiming our own power. We can't stand in the need for control, directing things up, down, north, south, east, west, and yet facilitate healings that reside in the freedom of us being willing to be the witness and the witnessed, the seer and the seen, the observer and the observed, and to observe without judgment, without direction. We either stand in the limitation of trying to bring about specific results. We stand in the consciousness of the process, of the results, or we step into the consciousness of being in the process of healing and allow ourselves the freedom to witness the results that the intelligence of, call it God, call it love, call it the universe, orchestrates for us to witness, because part of the healing comes from our willingness to witness and to let go of the need for control. Now, these are many things that I've discovered along the way. I didn't study this. I didn't plan it. I mean, I used to say I went home on a Thursday night thinking I was a doctor. I came back on a Monday and I was something else. Now, my parents always told me I was something else, but this was probably not what they had in mind. At that point in time, I'm sure I might have had trouble getting into a hospital if I pulled up to the emergency room, in an ambulance. Today, I speak at hospitals, at universities, the United Nations. We teach all around the globe, governments, universities, Madison Square Garden. These healings seem to take the healing world outside of the woo-woo, outside of the hoping, outside of the mind over matter, outside of the faith, outside of the belief, outside of needing positive visualization or neurolinguistic programming or any of those things, and steps it into simply a state of knowingness, a state of reality. 6 studies so far show us that once we access the reconnective healing spectrum, that the light from our DNA actually changes and becomes more coherent. Now, it wasn't so long ago that if we talked about light from our DNA, people would think that we were crazy. But we now know through the work of Dr. Fritz Popp and others who are continuing his work today that the DNA in each of our cells emits specific levels of light, and measurable in scientific laboratories. It's fairly well recognized that when our health is diminishing, that light is measurably dimming. When our health is coming back up, that light is coming back up. But when we reconnect with the reconnective healing frequencies, we access a new level of light coherence or harmony that we haven't experienced before. Part of the explanation of this, of why something is new, comes through what the scientists explained to me through the understanding of quantum physics, is that we've been existing in a 4-dimensional universe, height, width, depth, and time. So if you imagine a little bubble or a balloon, here's been our existence, this balloon, our existence in this huge, vast, multi-dimensional universe. Everything inside of our bubble or balloon has been energy, and the wall or the cell, the balloon itself has been comprised of height, width, depth, and time. When we access energy healing techniques, we focus in on the method or the technique, and we get subsets of the energy that's been within our balloon. So step 1 is when we transcend the techniques, we let go of that, and we become what's here. Then we access the entirety of the energy. That allows us to step into step 2, which is a gift of today, which wasn't accessible before. And that's because what we know today is that time is moving faster, not just in a linear fashion from point A to point B. Time is moving faster in all directions at once. So time is actually opening up and expanding, which means our bubble or balloon of existence is opening and expanding. Imagine that you take a balloon and you continue to pump it filled with air. The balloon gets larger and larger. What happens to the balloon itself? It becomes thinner.
Yes.
more transparent, more permeable. What's been inside can exchange with what's been outside. In essence itself, the balloon begins a process of disappearing. Time, as we're being taught today, is an illusion. For us to allow it to become an illusion, we have to allow it, in essence, to disappear from our reality. I know this is still highly conceptual. It's not an easy grasp for me. It's very fascinating to talk about it with a lot of the quantum physicists, because they like to explain these things in numbers, which makes no sense to me at all in numbers. But I'm gaining more and more of the theory of it. So what's been inside of our balloon has been energy. What's been outside of our balloon of time that's coming in now are new levels of energy, of light, and of information that haven't been witnessed here before. So they're not old. They're not old that we're rediscovering because they've existed outside of our balloon of time, outside of time. So they're timeless, but they're not old. A distinction.
May I ask you a question?
Sure.
Since I really have a Zippo science background.
Me too.
When was time added to the three dimensions? When did the scientists decide, okay, listen, we're not three-dimensional, we're four-dimensional?
Around 1950.
Okay. So
around 1950.
That was a brand new concept at the time.
Around 1950, yeah. Einstein informed us that time is the fourth dimension.
And that's accepted now by science, is that correct?
It took a while. Mm-hmm. Around the year 2000, science formally accepted that time is the fourth dimension. So this is a formal, scientifically acknowledged, accepted concept that we are four-dimensional beings. But you're right. When you and I went to school, we were told that we were three dimensions. We were height, width, and depth.
Right.
We couldn't find a fourth dimension because our idea of a dimension meant we'd be looking for something else which looked like height, width, and depth.
Yes.
And time doesn't look like height, width, and depth. We don't know what time looks like. So it took not just an Einstein, it took Einstein to discover this. And then it took the rest of science approximately another 50 years. And in 2000, they formally accepted it.
I'm
glad you asked me one of the few questions in science I actually know the answer to.
Okay. Well, that also helps my listeners. So, in other words, the whole idea that time is the fourth dimension isn't just a fun thought. No. It's now kind of established as science now.
It's accepted, established science today that we are four-dimensional beings.
And sometimes when we have information to offer people, it takes a while before people decide, okay, that seems like good information. Like the anti-smoking campaigns of maybe the 40s, 50s, 60s, finally people start smoking, went into decline. And that took a long time. But that's a question of consciousness, isn't it? It's consciousness. Large numbers of people decide, yep, you're right about the no smoking thing, and they kind of put it into practice, no smoking here. Mm-hmm. So are your ideas really like that? They're just completely fresh, but they're kind of, eventually people will think, well, that was not a big idea.
The thing about this is that it is so simple. It is so easy. It is so natural that once you learn this, most people start to say, oh, I probably could have done this all along. You know, I've trained close to 100,000 people around the world in how to do this work. The book, The Reconnection, is in 39 languages so far. The new book, Solomon Speaks, that only came out a matter of months ago, is already in 20 different languages. In the first book, in The Reconnection, see, I didn't know how to write a book. I had no intention of writing a book. Hay House was sent a copy of me giving a presentation somewhere, and they asked me to write a book. I said, I don't know how to write a book. They said, we'll tell you how. They said, take the first portion of the book, put it in thirds, 3 parts. First part, talk about how you discovered the work and your life early growing up and everything else. So I did. Second part, talk about the science, the philosophy of the work, your understanding of it. So I did. Third part, they said, make it a basic how-to. So the third part of the book is a basic how to do reconnective healing. It doesn't make you a reconnective healer. It allows you to do it on a personal level for yourself, your immediate family, maybe some friends. It's like reading a book on dentistry or hairstyling. You're going to take better care of your own hair and teeth.
Right.
and better care of the hair and teeth of your family, but it's not going to make you a dentist or a hairstylist.
Right.
And it's the same with this book. It allows you to begin to access it. To really learn how to become a reconnective healer, that's the reason we do seminars, to teach you how to do it. The book Solomon Speaks on reconnecting your life, well, let's say the book, The Reconnection, is to allow you to access a more comprehensive level of healing, to facilitate it for yourself and for others. Solomon Speaks is about accessing a deeper part of yourself. And the more deeply we access ourselves, then the greater facilitators for healing naturally we become. As a matter of fact, November 1, 2, and 3, oh, that's probably this weekend coming up, in, I'm a little confused. I just got off a plane late last night. November 1, 2, and 3 in Newport Beach, we're going to give a seminar teaching people how to do this. What we'll do on that Friday night is we'll give a 3-hour presentation, talk about the history of the work, the theory, the philosophy, the science. We'll bring up volunteers from the audience and give live demonstrations of the healing so you can see the reality of this, you know, maybe even on someone that you know, maybe even on you. And we'll give everyone a chance, an opportunity for you to feel this in your hands because it's very palpable. It's very easy to feel.
You can actually teach many of the people who come to actually feel it. You can actually teach it to them right away.
Sure. You want to feel it?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. Yeah, sure. Happy to.
Okay. So I'll tell you what. Take one hand.
Yeah.
Open your fingers. Can you see this in the camera? Good. Okay. Hold your fingers right there. What I do is I bring my hand in, and my whole arm begins to float. If I push my arm down, it floats back up again. And here you can relax. You can hold your hands right there. It's perfect. And I watch your fingers. Now, there we go. Can you see that tiny little movement in your fingertips?
No, but I feel a little bit of a pull.
You feel a pull. Watch your index finger, for example. Do you see that tiny movement in there or no?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. Maybe is a yes for I really don't want to pretend that I see it. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'll bring my other hand in. I'll pull or I'll play. What are you feeling in your hand? You feel nothing or you feel something?
I kind of feel energy coming from the palm.
From your palm. What's it feel like if we were going to use a word other than energy? See how your fingers pull back? You straighten them out and they pull back.
I kind of feel a pull. It feels pleasant.
Uh-huh. Can you describe it? What if you talking to a child wants to know what it feels like?
I don't know. It's just different.
Just different.
I have no idea.
Does it stay the same or does it change now?
I don't know, the outer part of my hand, I lack terminology here, seems kind of colder.
Uh-huh. And feel the temperature of my hand. It's cold.
Your hands are cold, yeah.
Uh-huh. So something seems to change in this interaction. If you bring your hand down and relax the fingers, see how they pull?
They seem to pull.
Yeah, they seem to pull.
These were pulling.
Now, we don't know why they're pulling, but what we do know is that your body is interacting with something.
Yes,
you want to feel it?
I would say so, yes. Yeah, Dr. Hans Kugler.
Okay, open your fingers for me. Just hold your hand open. I'll come in and watch the movement of his hand. See, he's got his arm in a more relaxed position than you did, so it's responding more naturally.
Okay.
Now watch as I pull further away. In a sense, it can become stronger. You see that movement? And then when I do this, you either feel nothing or you feel something. You tell me.
Well, I definitely feel something.
Can you describe it?
Well, it's not really. It's sort of like an uneasiness, new stuff.
Uh-huh. So let's say you have a grandchild who's like 6, 7, 8 years old, and they say, what does it feel like? What words would you use?
It's like a steadying. See, in much earlier, many years ago, due to an extreme accident, I had to take some drug that caused a little bit neurological problems, uneasiness. And naturally, I'm very aware of that, especially with something like this here. And as I do this, suddenly I recognize, hey, it's slowing down. It's actually becoming steady.
When I hold my hands still, there's one movement. When I wiggle my fingers, there's a different response. There's a different reaction in that field. A different response and a different reaction. We don't know exactly what it's doing. We know that it's doing something. We know that it's interacting. We know that it's interacting with the person's cell. We know today from 6 studies, 6 independent studies, a couple of which already are published, the others we're waiting for, is that it is restructuring our very DNA, which is why the researchers feel that the healings tend to be so instantaneous and lifelong when we do this work. It's not like any energy healing technique that we know of, old or new, because it's not a technique. It's nothing we have to learn how to do. We actually have to learn a little bit to be willing to let go of what we think we've known how to do. So we don't have to do anything. It's sort of like you vibrate at a higher level of light, energy, light, and information, and then this light interacts with the person with whom you're interacting with, and it serves as a reminder to them of their optimal light vibration, and something inside of them says, I remember this. This is me vibrating as light. This is me vibrating healthy. I think I'll do it again. And as they return to that vibration of light, the concept of how this works is that anything denser than that light has very little left to hold on to. So as appropriate for that person on their life course, those densities, those health challenges, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, relationship-wise, career-wise, those challenges simply fall away. And if we get nothing else from this whole concept, these next 2 thoughts are key, which are A, healing is just that simple, and B, anything more complicated than that is designed to sell us something. And it's not so much the object or the fear-based ritual or the healing toy that it's trying to sell us, as much as it's trying to sell us on the fear that we are less than abundantly enough. And maybe our responsibility today is to recognize our comprehensiveness, our abundance, the light, the truth of what we are. And as we recognize that, we inspire others to discover that in themselves. Just like when you take a lit candle to light another candle, to light another candle, to light another candle, all the flame does is it stands in its own purity, integrity, its essence, its truth. And by doing so, it inspires the next candle to ignite, and the next, and the next.
Well, I don't think I understand any of this, but
neither do I. But thank goodness I haven't let it stop me.
No, that's right. No, no. Okay. Now, so you worked on Hans. Now, can Hans learn a technique and work on Hans? Let's say Hans has a bad knee. Can Hans actually work on his knee, or do you work on the whole body and it goes where it wants to go?
You work wherever you want. It goes where it wants to go and does what it's intended to do, not by the intention of the other person, but by what's appropriate for Hans or the other person. So when we do the seminars, for instance, I talked about Friday night. Saturday and Sunday, what we do is we demonstrate this work from a stage. Then let's say that you attend the seminar. You'll stand at the head of a massage table. Someone else will lie down on your massage table. We will walk around to each of you. We'll take your hands. We will show you how to access this, how to find it, how to feel it, how to play with it. And you will witness the person on your table go into involuntary movements. Might be smaller like yours, might be larger like Hans. We will then show you how to accentuate it. You'll see the movements become larger or change or move to other areas of the body. Mm-hmm. Then we'll go back to the chairs, talk about what we learned, discuss some philosophy, question and answer, a little more science. I'll demonstrate a new level of the work. We'll go back to the tables again. You'll learn that. And by the end of one weekend, for example, if you're in Newport Beach, by Sunday the 3rd, I can pretty much make you 2 seemingly outrageous promises, which are A, you will be able to do anything and everything in the way of healing that I can do, if you allow yourself. And B, you will be able to do anything and everything in the way of healing that any human being anywhere on this planet can do. All it is it requires us to let go of our beliefs and techniques and rituals. It's like, it's time now to remove the training wheels from the bicycle, because we've mastered the bicycle with training wheels. Now it's time to master the bicycle itself. We're not here to master a new energy healing technique. We are here to master healing itself. And that's to recognize that the answer is not out there, but to discover that it's in here. And while it's in here, then we can share it with other people and inspire it within others. And their very presence of carrying this begins to inspire the healing within others, within others, within others. It's like a bad old Breck commercial.
Now, in preparation for your interview, I watched a number of your tapes, and I saw that in one of the seminars you had a woman, a middle-aged woman, must have been in her 50s, and rather heavy-set, and couldn't really raise her arm, had an accident, and you just worked on her for like 2-3 minutes, and this woman just put her arm above her head, and she seemed very cheerful about it. And so people who have injury, all of a sudden you can just you tap into something, they tap into something, and they just suddenly they have full range of motion. That's rather impressive, isn't it?
Well, I think so. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it.
No, it's really amazing.
It shocked me. It definitely, this was not what I intended. As I said, I went to sleep thinking I was a chiropractor. I
Right.
came back and I was something else.
And chiropractors do very good work. I'm actually a fan of chiropractic.
I love chiropractic.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the highest forms of healing on the planet.
Yes.
Just for me, personally, it's my second best. I don't want to live life at my second best. I think it's exquisite, and I will see chiropractors sometimes because I appreciate the work. This work seems to work off the body. It allows interferences with the body healing itself to vibrate out of the system, allows tissue to seem to regenerate fairly instantaneously. I mean, just, for example, at a recent weekend, I worked with a gentleman who was 70 years old. He used to be a professional, or maybe an Olympic swimmer, I forget, a professional swimmer. He had a problem he developed with his arm, that if he brought his arm even parallel to the ground, it would come out of the shoulder joint, cause a lot of pain, last for a while, be difficult getting back into place. So 25 years ago at the time, they did a state-of-the-art surgery on him they called a putty-plast surgery, which was, instead of fixing it so he had his full range of motion, they surgically shortened, tightened, reaffixed the muscles and did something with the joint so it made it impossible for him to bring his arm up parallel to the ground, so it never came out of the joint again, but he couldn't move his arm past here. Well, that saved him from a lot of pain and discomfort, but it also, limited his life in a lot of ways.
Right.
Well, we brought him up on a Friday night, allowed him to feel this in his hands, no differently than what I just did with you or Hans. And then I said to him, all right, before I actually work on your shoulder, we were just playing with your fingers. Before I work on your shoulder, remind me how high your arm can go. He says, oh, it only goes this high. Went all the way up. He has his full range of motion now. He swims, plays tennis, full natural, pain-free life. Nothing moves out of the joint. Now, how did that happen? If the muscles were cut and sutured and locked into place, how did that happen? I don't know. I don't know. But what seems to happen when tumors vanish and kids with cerebral palsy and epilepsy stop having seizures and walk and run and play and people regain full range of motion tells us at least one thing. Tissue changes. Nervous tissue, muscle tissue changes. And how long does it take? This long. A moment, a snap of the fingers. This is outside of, up until now, has been our recognized reality.
It is outside of the recognized reality, is it not? It is really,
Yeah.
It's really outside.
But of those 100,000 approximate people that I've taught so far, a good 15, 20,000 of them are mainstream medical practitioners, doctors, nurses, physical therapists. So reconnective healing is also practiced in hospitals and in private medical practices around the world. So it's becoming not so unknown.
So if I can offer this, I'm not sure this is accurate, but you mentioned earlier in your book, fourth dimension time was considered, I guess, science fiction at first in 1950 when Einstein proposed it, and now 50 or so years later, it's seen as kind of established scientific fact. So is it possible that the ideas that you have been teaching will be seen sometime in the future as like, well, of course, that's not very exciting. That's just the way it is.
Well, of course. That's part of human progress and evolution. It is something, as I explained, because of this expansion of time that's available to us now that wasn't available to us before. But it's also us stepping into our second nature. So in the future, children are going to have a difficult time wondering why people were actually swallowing poisons to try to get healthy.
Oh, you really think so? That's what you really see.
I hope so, and I believe so. What is a miracle? Some things are difficult to explain. Miracles speak for themselves. 100 years ago, if you turned on a little knob on a black box and people started to sing and dance, that would be a miracle.
Yes, that's right.
Later it became Lawrence Welk, right?
That's right.
Or whoever the show was.
Glenn Campbell.
Oh, well, that would be a stretch. I was actually thinking of who's the guy with the shoulders up all the time? Ed Sullivan.
Right.
Later it became Ed Sullivan. Now, today, we turn the TV off and on 6-8 times a day just when we walk in and out of a room to have background noise. Right. Is it any less of a miracle than it was then? Of course not. But we don't understand life without it, so it doesn't strike us as a big wonder. Computers. How many people had computers in the 1990s? It was just starting to happen there.
Right.
And now people, 10, 15 years old or more can hardly remember or can't even imagine a life without it.
That's a good analogy. That's very fair. Right. So this healing technique, again, it is just very impressive because healing is very impressive, really. It's just impressive. Now, when you went to Cleveland Chiropractic, I remember in a section of the book you said, all the other young men and women who were there as students had all remarkable stories to tell how they were healed and why they really loved chiropractic. And you had a more laissez-faire attitude, more kind of like, well, this seems good, I'm doing it.
I had never experienced chiropractic. I went to school because of the philosophy of it. And the philosophy was very simple. Look for our brain, we think sits in our head, but our brain is actually our brain, and then our brain becomes our brain stem, becomes our spinal cord, becomes our nerves, connects with all of the cells and organs in our bodies.
That's lovely that you wrote that. When I read that in your book, I thought, I just never knew that, and it seemed very important and very simple and very fun, and I thought, well, that's amazing.
So, we think of chiropractic as back pains or neck pains. The first chiropractic patient didn't have back pain or neck pain. He was deaf. But so what happened was that the discoverer of chiropractic adjusted a bone in his spine. He regained his hearing. He thought it was a cure for deafness.
Right.
So he puts out this call. Deafies from all throughout North America are coming in north, south, east, and west. He's popping their back and popping their neck. Some of them are regaining their hearing. Some of them are losing their hearing. I'm joking. Right. But they're having healings from other things. And that's when they discovered that when we rebalance the spine, the brain-body communication rebalances itself. And there's no longer that big interference with the body's communication network. So the power that made the body heals the body. The body heals itself. With reconnective healing, it moves us beyond needing to do the physical correction and allows us to return the vibration of the body to a natural level where the interferences vibrate out of the system and the body heals itself. It's really no big secret. Now, I will tell you, very unusual things happen with this. Extremely unusual things happen. 3 months into this, when I first started doing this work, I held my hands near one of my patients. You want to get into the weird stuff, or
ahead,
have we got it
sure.
weird enough already?
The whole thing's been very weird, so go ahead. Yeah,
okay.
Go ahead.
I held my hands near one of my patients. His head jerked back, his eyes rolled to the top of his head, his mouth open, his tongue moved. Air came out, the air condensed itself into a voice, and this voice came through him and said, "We are here to tell you to continue doing what you were doing. what you were doing is bringing light and information onto the planet. I figured, okay, I've got an unusual person here. That's all. Is he sane? Is he not sane? Is it weird? Is it not? It felt very interesting. I thought it was something unique to him. 2 days later, it happened to 3 other patients. They said the same 2 phrases. We're here to tell you to continue doing what you're doing. What you're doing is bringing light and information onto the planet. 2 of them added, what you're doing is reconnecting strands, which I remember this because you asked me about DNA strands. Yeah. One of them said, what you're doing is reconnecting strings. And Fred, the first patient, came back in later that week and said, what you're doing is reconnecting strings. A few days later, it happened to 5 other people. And over the next 3 months, it happened to 50 different patients. Lost consciousness. They spoke 6 verbatim phrases. None of them, except Fred, the first person, ever had a voice come through them before. And at the end of 3 months, it stopped coming through every single person except for Fred. I continued talking with this voice through Fred, tape recording the sessions, and held on to it for about close to 20 years. And those insights are what we released in this book, Solomon Speaks. Those insights that allow us to access deeper levels of ourselves, deeper levels of the essence of who and what we are, deeper levels of us, especially if we want to become healers. Let me read you a couple sentences from this, if I can get directly to the page that I want to.
This is from your new book.
This is from the new book that's called Solomon Speaks on Reconnecting Your Life. And here I am right at the beginning. I'm going to share something a little bit from the beginning of chapter 22, depending on whether or not I get my fingers to work here.
Let me share something on a personal level. So
Sure.
When you were getting all these, I'll use the word readings for lack of a better word,
Sure.
saying these very positive things, did you find that your energy level went way up? You could work on many more patients. You were just in a better mood. You're just a kind of a better person. Were you a better son? Is that fair to ask you? Is that too personal?
No, it was, I felt I was better and more expansive on all levels. I was more excited about myself and more aware of the world. And I thought that was very important.
It seems important.
Here, I'm going to read you a small segment from this. This can apply to us as healers, but this really applies to us as who we are. It was spoken directly to me, but not me, Eric Pearl. Me who was bringing a new level of awareness, new teaching onto the planet, but I believe this is all of our responsibilities. You're sharing this teaching here, so hear this speaking to you. There's a lot that needs to be said in various ways. We understand ourselves in a limited fashion, and we need to carry this understanding as a life process. It is the unveiling of a multifaceted force within our lives, and we need to peel away the exterior so that the internal being shines through to those we are working with. This eternal soul that resides within our framework is being covered up in many ways by our fears and apprehensions. The soul fights its way through this protection. We try to keep ourselves cloistered so that we remain feeling safe because it feels dangerous to many to reveal their souls. But in your work, that is what you need to do. You need to unveil your soul. It is not a simple process, and the stripping away of ego is an eternal process. The selflessness that must shine through the being, that can reach in without interference from other sects of energy or frameworks of your mind, because it's your mind that interferes with the process. The flow of unveiling that soul, that presentation of your core energy, that pure light, is the soul in its most idyllic form, and once it shines through without it being refracted by various mindsets, it will flow in a more direct manner. Once you allow your soul, that egoless purity, to come through, it is almost a common denominator in that it has the ability to automatically fuse with the frequency of the person you're working with. So your job in this process is to strip away the defense, strip away the mind, strip away the control mechanisms and the techniques that you have in this plane. Let them go. Let them be a part of an exterior that has nothing to do with you, and present that soul in the room. It will automatically do the work. That energy is the common universal language of the cosmos. It is understood immediately, and it is felt intrinsically. This book carries insights into accessing deeper levels of who we are. As we access and unveil our soul to ourselves, we unveil it and share it with others. The world changes. As a matter of fact, this particular seminar, November 1, 2, and 3 in Newport Beach, has something that most of our seminars don't, which is on that Saturday night, Fred, who channeled this material through, the co-author of Solomon Speaks, will give a 2-hour presentation and a live, I hate to use the word channeling, but I guess we will, bringing
People
through
know
this
what that
information
is, yeah.
to the people.
Well, that's actually very impressive. And where's that going to be in Newport Beach?
That will be at the Hyatt Regency, Newport Beach.
That is November 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Is coming
November
right up.
1, 2, and 3. We have a few seminars in North America. We have one in Toronto, November 8, 9, and 10. We'll have one in Mexico City in December. The 2 other English-speaking seminars around the world that we have this year one is over Thanksgiving weekend in London, and one is the following weekend in Sydney, Australia.
Well, you know, it's very impressive. Do we have to take a break, Nestor? 3 minutes. Okay, we'll take a break in a little while. You know, once again, I read the book, and I liked watching the videos, and I thought, oh my goodness, I didn't necessarily understand it at all, but I thought it seemed real to me, and that's why, of course, I invited you to be on the show, and I was thrilled that you were able to be on the show. And one of the things I like about your healing was the woman in your book who worked for you as the office manager, who had the voice of the nanny. I liked her as a character in the book, you know, much the same way, if you don't mind my saying so about you in the book, is that, you know, you don't wear a black cape and you don't pretend that, you know, you're the next incarnation of anything. You're just an intelligent person saying, listen, this is the work that I've discovered, and it's very simple, and it's beneficial to you, and we can all do this. And I think that's very impressive. And also, I do think, and I'd like to go back to this analogy of that time is the 4th dimension, which is now kind of taken for granted, but people might have thought, oh, that's just bogus in 1950. So maybe this important work, which seems to be so widely picked up by people think, this works for me. So maybe this is kind of a next wave. Maybe your work is really the next wave, because after all, you spoke at the United Nations. You don't get to go speak at the United Nations if people think this guy is just a little bit of a wacko.
We're here to evolve. I believe there are old souls, there are new souls. We pass through our lifetimes for our evolution. And in our evolution, we are discovering things here on Earth. For instance, we know that our bodies don't heal the way we were taught. Our bodies don't heal through the biochemical mechanism, although biochemicals are involved. Our bodies heal through energy, frequency, vibration, light, resonance, informational exchange. We know that our brains don't have little compartment areas where one is speech and one is memory and one is learning and one is language.
We know that, right.
We know from,
right.
From Drs. Carl Pribram and Carl Lashley that the information is diffused throughout our brains and that we access it from this field called zero-point field by science. So in other words, our brains are actually transducers from a larger field of energy and information. So think of a computer. You have a metal box. By itself, it does nothing. Install a software program, you get information out of the computer, and you access information from that internet field out there somewhere. Upgrade the software, you get more information from the computer and better access from that internet field out there somewhere. So what if our brains are our hardware? What if our DNA is our software? And what if what we're doing is what these 6 international studies so far have confirmed with Reconnective Healing, that we are actually restructuring our DNA, or as I say, reconnecting it, bringing about higher levels of more coherent light. Then what took place in this little interaction between Hans and me, or between you and I, is that we really started the facilitation of the next level of a human software upgrade, which allows for better access to the information within our brains, more comprehensive access to that multidimensional field out there somewhere, a zero-point field. And since we go where our attention goes, then we are actually becoming more multidimensional beings. Reconnective healing showed up in the form of physical healings because that's very exciting to us as a people. But the reality is it's only one tiny, tiny part of the gift. The larger part of the gift is that we are here to experience our next level of human evolution. And by accessing the reconnection and reconnective healing and sharing it with others, we are bringing this about to a greater degree on the planet today.
You know, this is a very fascinating aspect because I've been thinking and listening into here. This is what we are doing in anti-aging medicine. really to evolve medicine, right?
Right.
And very often they said, oh, you can't do that. I said, come on, be open-minded. What does it hurt you, right?
Right.
And open-minded, think positive, visualize. When I had my extreme car accident injury, side impact, damaged my heart to a degree that USC, everybody said nothing could be done about it. 4 drugs, pacemaker, defibrillator. I said, no way, right? I mean, think positive. I visualized being back into everything normal and so on. I mean, using the most aggressive thinkers in this field, open-minded to it. I'm totally back to normal. I pass aviation medicals. I fly airplanes out there, right? I mean, it is just totally, totally fascinating, this new field.
Right.
You know?
Right.
It's look, the subtitle of my book, right, Lifelong Health, learn how to control your genes as they're young with age. Everybody says, oh, your genes, everything is fixed. Baloney.
Right.
This is just total nonsense, right?
Right.
And the more you work in this field, for me in stem cells, it's you learn about this and you think, oh, God, this is so complex. No, the more you learn about it, the easier and the simpler it gets. I mean, this whole thing is just... I mean, the logic in it, the system in it, it is so absolutely fantastic, right? The telomeres working together in increasing, decreasing lifespans and so on. It blows me away. And that's just magnificent to be in this field, right?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Eric Pearl, it has been a great pleasure to have you on Here's Your Health today. It's a great pleasure. And I hope everyone can go to your seminar in Newport Beach this weekend, and in Mexico City, and in Britain, and all over the globe. And I'd like to thank you for being a guest, and thank you for your work. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in today to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live Network. It's been a remarkable presentation by Eric Pearl, and we'll be back in a few minutes after these important messages.
The American Heart Association's Heart Walk is coming. Bring your family, bring your friends, bring your coworkers. Help yourself and those around you to live longer, healthier lives. Form a team today and walk to help the American Heart Association defeat heart disease and stroke, 2 of the nation's leading killers. For more information, visit heartwalk.org.
Hi, this is Jean Noel Bassior, inviting you to join me for my new show, The Book Beat, Monday evenings at 6:30 p.m. I'll be talking to authors about their latest book so you can find a fantastic read. But more than that, I'll be talking to experts about how you can write your own book and get it published. So tune in on Mondays at 6:30 p.m. exclusively on latalklive.com. And remember, you can catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream TV. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Dr. Lewis Logan, inviting you to join me every Friday from 11 a.m. to 12 noon for Faith on the Front Line. We don't just talk about it, we are about it. That's our motto. Don't just talk about it, be about it. We highlight the issues and challenges that we face today and how faith communities and leaders make a difference. So don't forget to tune in to Faith on the Front Line, exclusively here on LA Talk Live. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio and R&B and watch us on Ustream TV. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Dawn Christie, inviting you to join me every Friday, 1 p.m. Pacific, for my all-new show, The Dawn Christie Show. Join me as I discuss love, spiritual readings, your purpose, why am I born, what am I here to do. So don't forget to tune in The Dawn Christie Show at 1 p.m. Pacific, exclusively on LA Talk Live. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream TV, reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hey y'all, I'm Shaquem Williams and I'm the host of The Shock Factor here on LA Talk Live. We broadcast to the world every Friday at 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Live music, live performances, we're just live. Chef Momo, Life MC, Diana, and once again your host Shaquem Williams. So come join us every Friday here at LA Talk Live, the world-leading broadcasting internet radio station. The Shock Factor. The Shock Factor.